Everyone knows how the 1991 Gulf War ended, a swift, decisive coalition victory that kicked Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait in 100 hours. The war was hailed as a perfect military operation, but the reality is, the Pentagon was terrified. They weren't afraid of Kuwait. They were afraid of Saudi Arabia. What if the coalition blinked? What if, in those crucial first weeks, Saddam hadn't stopped at Kuwait's border, but had kept marching to seize the world's largest oil reserves? The outcome wouldn't have been Desert Storm. It would have been a global energy crisis, and a conflict that could have lasted years, costing trillions. This is the true nightmare scenario that almost came true. If you're fascinated by the history that almost happened, hit that subscribe button now. We dive deep into the world's most critical turning points. Let's get into it. First, we need to understand the history we know, the real-world Operation Desert Storm, how a massive coalition led by the U.S. expelled Iraqi forces from Kuwait, showcasing military technology the world had never seen. Then we'll cross the line into the alternate history. What happens when the world's most powerful militaries fail to secure the Saudi border, allowing Saddam to seize the most critical resource on Earth? Stay with me until the end. We'll reveal the shocking new military map of the Middle East this alternate war would have drawn. The goal was simple: stop the momentum. After Iraq's invasion of Kuwait in August 1990, the U.S. instantly deployed Operation Desert Shield. It was the largest U.S. military deployment since Vietnam. The coalition's greatest advantage wasn't sheer numbers, it was stealth and precision. F-117. Nighthawk planes, virtually invisible to radar, decimated Iraqi command and control within hours, effectively blinding Saddam's military before the ground invasion even began. The famous left hook was the key. Instead of grinding through Kuwait's defenses, U.S. and coalition forces swung hundreds of miles west into the unpopulated desert of Saudi Arabia. This strategic genius allowed the 100-hour ground campaign to utterly destroy Iraqi forces. But the critical decision, the one that defines this history, was not to advance on Baghdad. Why? Because the mission was defined: liberate Kuwait, not conquer Iraq. The concern was the chaos and power vacuum that would follow, a problem they didn't want to own. That's the history we know, the Lightning War. But that entire reality rests on one critical assumption: that the coalition was fast enough to shield Saudi Arabia. The real risk wasn't the tanks, it was the hesitation. If the U.S. had delayed by just 3 weeks, the entire map changes. That 3-week gap is our new reality. Let's imagine the U.S. and coalition, facing domestic political pressure, pause to build a larger UN consensus. That's the 3-week delay. Saddam sees the hesitation as weakness. His goal wasn't just Kuwait's oil, but regional dominance. He sends his Republican Guard south, bypassing Kuwait City and aiming straight for the Saudi oil province of eastern Saudi Arabia. The moment Iraqi forces seize the major oil production and shipping facilities, Abqaiq and Ras Tanura, the world instantly loses 25% of its oil supply. A global recession is immediate. More importantly, the war is no longer a localized liberation. It's a full-scale war for the global economy. The war shifts from a 100-hour blitz to a long, grueling fight. Coalition forces are now fighting a defensive, rather than offensive, war to reclaim territory. Instead of an easy victory, Allied casualties soar. Public support collapses. We're looking at a Vietnam-level commitment in the desert. With Iraqi Silkworm missiles controlling the Gulf Coast, the U.S. Navy is forced to keep its distance. Supplying the massive coalition force becomes a nightmare, turning the conflict into a logistical slog. The final showdown. Even if the coalition eventually pushes Saddam back, which is far from guaranteed in this scenario, the long-term damage is irreversible. Iraq's military is destroyed, but the war creates a regional power vacuum not filled by U.S. stability, but by radicalized militias funded by the surviving Gulf states, leading to decades of deeper, more intense conflict. The single decision to mobilize fast, to deploy Desert Shield immediately, wasn't just a tactic. It was the moment the U.S. prevented a war of months or years and saved the global economy. So, Which part of this alternate history was the most chilling? Was it the immediate collapse of the global economy, or the prospect of a US-led ground war that lasted years? What aspect of this scenario, the economic crisis or the prolonged ground war, would have had the biggest long-term impact? Or, what other moment in history would you like us to rewrite next? We love reading your ideas in the comments. Thanks for watching this episode of History Rewritten.